All right. Welcome back, guys. I'm excited today to introduce you to somebody I've actually met two different places in two different parts of the country. I think we met in Scottsdale at a Fearless Business Conference. I'm not sure it was in Scottsdale exactly, but also you were you were an MC in both places, but you were also an MC in Nashville at Corinne Crabtree's business thing, right? Am I wrong about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Her business. Why am I blank on the word?
Oh, no BS business.
Yeah, the No BS business like conference workshop. Yes. Yep.
Yes.
I actually
And
got to MC for her twice. It was amazing.
oh, how fun. Okay. And your middle name, tell us,
Is Joy. You
is
can't make this
Joy.
stuff up. Yep, it's Joy.
So Annie Joy, and what's your last name?
Carter.
Carter. And I was just thinking about our interview today, and I was like, her parents knew Joy because that is exactly when you're doing the emceeing, it is business conferences, like you're learning, but it's a lot and you're taking in a lot. And then Annie comes along and is like, let's infuse some fun into this and,
Yep.
and makes us get
Mhm.
up and dance and do crazy things. But I'm going to let you introduce yourself in just a moment, but I want to tell people the topic really quickly. What we're going to talk about is loneliness. And I think it's such an important topic that nobody is talking about, but we'll get there. So, can you just introduce yourself? Tell us what you're about, what you do.
I love that. Thank you. And it has been so fun to be part of this life coaching world in the sense of like meeting all these amazing women like you at these conferences. It's such a beautiful atmosphere. It really speaks to where you put yourself makes a big difference. Like who your community is, who you're spending time around makes a big difference in your mental health and and the joy that you're feeling in your life. So I'm Annie Joy Carter, and I help women overcome loneliness. So, kind of what that entails is, and we'll talk more about this, but really looking at like how you feel about yourself, how you are taking care of your own mental health, how you're speaking up for yourself. All these things I also teach at my kindness camp for tween girls in the summer. So, that camp is more of a preventative measure, right? To help these girls grow up learning these skills. And then the coaching and the teaching, the education I do is around similar practices, but for women, especially mamas, because becoming a mom is such a huge transition, right? But really, I love helping anyone who is going through any major transition of their life that's making them feel really lonely, whether that's them getting a diagnosis or their kiddo getting a diagnosis, whether that's divorce, whether that's a big move to another place, something that kind of just shifts your world and creates a space where you have to start over. I've had that
Mm.
experience for me where, with my son getting his autism diagnosis, it kind of created some dissonance between me and some of the people I was around because all of a sudden my world looked so much different than theirs, and how to navigate where I fit into my community with having this diagnosis and this different lifestyle, right? And then getting divorced. I've been divorced twice, but the second time with my babies getting divorced, that was a whole new ball game because I lost my entire community. My in-laws weren't talking to me, all of his friends stopped talking to me. That was my whole community. And so
Yeah.
having to start all over again, like I know what it feels like to be lonely. I know what it feels like to start over. And so that's why I feel so passionate about this because I've been in those spaces. I've moved to another state and had to start over with friends. Those are all big life transitions where we have to start over. And so I love being able to help women understand that even if there's new friends that need to come into your life, it doesn't change your worthiness. It's just a new phase of your life.
And I didn't even expect you to come from this perspective of starting over, but it makes so much sense for you because you have had and I just knowing a little bit about you, because you're very open, you share,
Yes,
I
open
just
book
from,
over here.
yeah, just from the first, couple times I've met you, I knew that you had been divorced before. I knew that your son had autism. I knew that you did the kindness camp kind of stuff. And when I was like, oh, we're going all in on loneliness, I didn't even consider starting over. But as somebody that, is having like kids that are nearly adults, it is a sense of starting over. And it didn't
Yeah.
even like enter my mind that that's what's partly making me feel lonely, is like there is this whole transition
Yeah.
of like, okay, what is life like now? Even though usually the problem with that is like your relationship with your husband has been like thrown aside to raise kids, which is not the
Right.
case. Luckily, in my case, I've known my husband since I was, oh gosh, 12. I don't
Oh, I
know.
love that. That's amazing.
But I've known him forever. And so there's like really not a sense of starting over in that way. But in the theme of starting over, where my mind went was like, running a business online is really lonely. Like,
Totally.
although I'm having a conversation with you and you're fantastic, and I'm dealing with clients all the time and they're amazing people, and that's all great. And we have this whole social media world, but like everybody seems to be lonely. Like
Yeah.
everybody seems to be like, sure, you're posting online, but you're not making any real connection. Like how do people make real connection in this day and age where people are like, send, I've made a connection.
Yep. Right. So true. And you're right. There is being an entrepreneur is lonely, right? Because especially when you are, and we got to call ourselves CEOs because we are, we like forget that, right? We forget that we're the ones in charge. And it gets a little lonely feeling like you're the one that has to make all the decisions and you're the one that has to like make yourself work or whatever. And even though you may have, like you said, amazing clients, amazing podcast interviews, but those are just like small snippets of your day. And the rest
Yeah.
of your day, you might be entirely alone. But there is a distinction between being alone and feeling lonely, right?
Mm,
Because we've all experienced this, I'm sure, where you are all alone, but you feel okay. But then
y-
there's times you're with other people, but you
yeah.
feel lonely. So I think that when we say loneliness, we're talking about a disconnect, right?
Yeah.
Because social media is a false sense of connection. We love social media, it's a tool, right? But a tool, just like any other tool, like you could take a hammer and you could kill somebody or you could build a house, right? It's just a tool.
That
So,
metaphor. Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's but it's real. You know, you could kill someone. Please don't do that. I'm not advocating for murder, but social media is a
Uh,
tool, so it can be used for helping or hurting, right?
yeah.
So it can be great for like, hey, everybody, I'm having this party, come on over, or hey, here's this beautiful experience that I had and I want to share on a bigger platform to hopefully inspire more people. That can be really, really great. But it's not a connection. And I think that's what we
Yeah.
have to get clear about is that it's not connection. It's information sharing. It's not connection. Sending someone a happy birthday to you. I just did 3 of them this morning. I was on my social media. I'm like, "Oh, birthdays. Sending happy birthdays. Send them something awesome." It's a touch point, but it's not real connection. So, real connection comes from having real conversations. So, whether that's on the phone, whether it's Marco Polo, whether it's in person, but it's not just having conversation, it's having vulnerable conversations.
Mm.
The reason people feel connected to me easily is because I am an open book.
Well, and this is an ADHD podcast for
Right?
professionals and
Right.
entrepreneurs.
Mhm, and I
And
do have that.
we don't like small talk. Like
No, no,
we
thank
don't
you.
like surface level stuff. Like tell us the real thing. Like are we talking about nothing, or are we talking about something? If we're not talking about something, we don't want to do it. Have you
Yeah, I'm
noticed
out.
that?
Yeah, I that's very true, and I'm glad you said that because 'cause I'm like, sometimes I feel bad that I'm like, "Cool," and small talk can have a purpose for, like, a minute,
Yeah.
but then
Grocery store
next
line. Like,
yes, now
hey,
now tell me your deepest, darkest secrets. Just kidding. Like, don't tell me that. And here's the thing, don't share something you're not comfortable sharing, right? But if you can just kind of even tiptoe into sharing parts of yourself of like, man, I had a really hard time today, or whatever. What I've noticed, because I have lots of practice in being vulnerable, right? I do it everywhere and at church and my work and my friendships. I just am like, blah, here's what's going on. And because I've had so much practice, I can testify that most people receive it well.
yeah.
Most people are like, "Oh, sister, me too,"
Yeah.
or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like usually
That
if you
immediately when you said that, my hand was like,
Yep, yep, me as well, right? Like it is a connecting force that like you can't deny. And so I know that's scary, but just practicing a little bit. And I know that if for anyone listening, I'm assuming a lot of your listeners do have ADHD, right? That's why they're here.
Oh, of
They're in the
course, yes.
space of like, teach me all the things. And I can completely attest to like how tricky it can be sometimes to be open about like the way our brains work. I think that nowadays we have more exposure and awareness and education around someone who has a neurospicy brain,
Yeah.
right? Like there's more awareness of that. But there's still going to be some people that don't know or who have judgments, right? I've had some rude comments said to me about having the brain that I have and my ability to be successful. And that hurts. I'm not going to lie, those comments don't hurt, but it's learning to work through that. And I'm sure that's what you do so beautifully with your clients is helping them work through what other people say has nothing to do with you.
It's none of your business.
It really
Exactly.
is not any of your business. And the truth is that when we get so clear on how great we are, I have like this love affair with myself. It's not
Mhm.
perfect and I am working on it every day, but I will like wink at myself in the mirror. I'm like, girl, I love you. Like you are slaying today. Like working on my self-worth and knowing that my self-worth is non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Whether people come or go in my life, okay, and I can mourn the loss of someone leaving my life, but I'm not adding to that by making it mean that I'm not worth staying around for.
It's so interesting that you mentioned like comments about people um disbelieving in your ability because of your brain, because in my brain it's just like does not compute. Like there's nothing that we can't do just because we have ADHD. Like
Yeah.
to me, like I don't know. I guess it's probably my grandma's fault, honestly. I grew up with a grandma that there's this whole big story about how it actually wasn't my grandma. It's it's a
Oh,
it's a crazy story. I told my husband the
surprise,
other day,
surprise.
I'm like, I have crazy stories. Like
Yeah, yeah.
and nobody wanted me to know that it wasn't actually my grandma. It was actually my great uncle and my great aunt, and they were amazing. But my grandma just instilled in me there's nothing you can't do. There's nothing you can't do. And so ADHD never made a difference, like as far as like
Yeah.
what I could do. And what's interesting is I think the people attracted to me, the people that are my clients, are like, sure, I have ADHD, but yeah, let's get this stuff done. Like,
Right. Yes, totally. They want to
and
work with it, not against it. And I love
exactly.
that. Thank you, grandma. Slash not grandma, but grandma. Like, thank you for instilling that belief in you. I think it's Lindsay Sterling. Yeah, I read her book and she talked about her mom was very good about just like, you can do anything, like just supported all of her dreams. And it never
Mm,
occurred to her that she couldn't, right? It speaks so much to the things we say to our children make a huge impact. They just take our beliefs and they just take them as their own,
yeah.
you know? And people will ask me about like, what do you teach the kids in your camp? Like, how do you help your girls have that confidence about okay, I swear I can talk. Starting over, they want to know like what it is you can do to help them instill that confidence. Like, well, they're going to borrow your belief until they make their own. So if they're hearing from you, like your grandma said to you, like, "Oh, you can do anything." You just bought that. You
Yeah.
put those lenses on. You're like, yeah, thank you for giving me these lenses. You weren't like analyzing, like, well, does this make sense? Or is this really true? Kids don't do that. They're just like, okay, an adult said it, therefore it's true. But
Yeah.
also, if they say things like, "Oh, you're not very good at that," or "Oh, you shouldn't do that," or whatever, they're also going to adopt those lenses as well.
Or I'm not very good at that. Or
Yeah.
I'm too fat. Or I'm too whatever.
Mhm.
You have to be very careful about the stuff you're saying about yourself or other people because
Right,
they'll
because they're
take
gonna
that
adopt that
on too.
too. Yes, 100%. The things you're saying about yourself as well. They're just little sponges. They're just soaking it all up. And listen, we've all done dumb things, okay? We're smart people who do dumb things sometimes, and that's okay. Like, we're all just trying our best,
I
right?
have I have to stop you right there. Say it again.
Oh,
Say it
we're
again.
smart people who do dumb things sometimes.
Everybody needs to take that on because it is 50-50. Like it really
Right.
is. Like you are not one or the other. You are not black or white. Well, that's a bad example. But it's not one or the other. Like I think it was Jody Moore who's like, I'm a good mom, and I'm a bad mom. And we're throwing out all these names, and some of this is like coach speak, but,
Sure.
and I'm sorry, but you can Google. Uh,
Google up. You probably already know who Jody Moore is anyway, but if not, go Google. Yes, totally.
I
Yeah.
was driving, I remember where I was. I was in Yuma, Arizona, and I was driving back home, and she said, I'm a good mom and I'm a bad mom. And I have this whole like bad mom story. In fact, I'm starting a podcast with a former client who's from Ireland who is hilarious. She's so funny. And that's why we're doing the podcast, just to have fun.
I love it.
And it's because of this whole like bad mom story that I have about myself because in my weird life, my mom just left at like when I was like 2. She just left.
Mm,
And she had her own reasons, I'm sure, but she like kind of never came back. And so I didn't really have that mom experience. And so I have this whole story about being a bad mom. And Jody Moore said, and talking about borrowing beliefs, we have ADHD, guys. This is all going to like circle back around.
listen, we're gonna go on 9 tangents and you're gonna love it. Yes.
You're like, you promised loneliness.
It's all part of it.
We're getting there. Um, but I had this whole like, I'm a bad mom. Like, I waited to have kids because I'm like, I'm surely going to be a bad mom. And she said, I'm a good mom and I'm a bad mom. And I was like, that is true. And I describe beliefs like you have just taken on a handbag, like a purse. You know, somebody's been like, here's this purse. You're a bad mom. And I'm like, absolutely right. Thank you. And I get to decide if I want to carry that around or not,
Yep.
or if I want to put it down.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just want to put it down. Like sometimes it's like not serving you to continue believing this. And that's where this podcast is coming from of this whole like two bad moms is like so many of us out there. And I don't know what your experience is, but so many of us out there are just like, we're just screwing it all up. And what I love to tell my clients, they're like, I'm afraid I'm going to screw my kids up. And I'm like, yes, you are.
Yeah. That's
You
part of
are.
their mortal journey too, is the mistakes you're making, they have to learn from.
And
Yep.
that's gonna stab some people in the heart. And I know I'm gonna get comments on YouTube where they're like, I don't like that you said that. But trust me, there is going to be some way that when they are adults, they're gonna go, Mom shouldn't have done that.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's where we get to be the emotional, secure people and going, you know what? You're probably right. Probably for
Yeah.
your journey, I shouldn't have done that. But circling back around, back to connection.
I
It's
love it. Yes. Well, like you said, borrowing that belief. So I will offer you some beliefs you can borrow about loneliness, right? So some of the things that have really helped me to overcome feeling lonely in my starting over, in my, situations where I could have just gone inward and been like, okay, screw everybody. I don't want to be around anybody. I'm in too much pain. I don't want to connect, right? There's been many experiences where I could have gone inward and I chose to not. Um, One example is when my daughter was in the hospital. She was 2 weeks old and she almost died, and it was a horrendous experience, and in that moment, I started to kinda go inward of like, "Oh my gosh, this is so painful." But as I was sitting there, pumping, 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 because she's under a paralytic, but I still have to pump because I'm 2 weeks postpartum, right? So I'm in these lonely moments in this hospital, and I decided to turn outward, and I had this idea to create these like care packages for moms who have kiddos in a similar situation where they're stuck in the hospital for a period of time. So there was like, extra pair of underwear, a brush, a comb, a note pen, a notepad and a pen and just little things and maybe extra change of clothes, this little care package for moms. And I started that project. I did it for a few years. I've now passed it off to someone else. But that idea was birthed in a space of feeling a lot of pain and loneliness and wanting to turn outward to create something good out of something hard. I have
Mhm.
since been part of lots of autism mom communities and supported and helped other people in that space because I want to create a community, right? So there's a tendency to want to retreat when we're in pain, and it's totally normal to want to do that. So one of the lies I often see is no one understands me. And while that belief is I can understand where you're coming from of like, oh, no one understands me. But here's the truth is that we don't have to understand someone's experience to understand their feeling. There is 1,000 different experiences we can have in this lifetime, right? Maybe you're not divorced. Maybe you don't have a child with a diagnosis. But I've been able to connect with people in so many places of my life, even if they haven't had the same experiences as me, because we
Yeah.
connected on feeling disappointed, feeling betrayed, feeling grief, feeling loneliness, right? I think we can all relate to those feelings because there's only so many feelings a body can have.
Well, and that belief of no one understands me is going to just create the fact. You're just going to find all the evidence of no one
Right.
understands me. Like I remember feeling this way, like my closest friend moved away, and I remember like going to church and being like, I have nothing in common with any of these people. And then realizing that's a me problem. I wanted
Yeah.
it to be a them problem, and it wasn't. It was a me problem. And it's like, why don't you have anything in common with these people? It's like, well, you're not sharing with them. You're not talking to them. You're not spending time with them. You're not connecting with them. Of course you have nothing in common with these people. Like,
Yeah.
so how much of it and I don't want that to be a blame thing. I don't want people to hear that and go, "Oh, so it's my fault." But
Yeah,
I
no, let's
do
just take fault out of the conversation, right? It's not a fault thing,
exactly.
right? It's just an awareness piece.
Exactly. Like if you have that awareness, then you can do something about it.
Yes.
And that's what I had to realize was like I wanted to blame them. I wanted to go, they don't understand me. And what it really was I was just not connecting with them.
Yes.
Mm.
And that is perfect. Thank you for saying that because I think that the perfect like antidote to like no one understand me is just I wonder. Like having that curiosity, I wonder what I might have in common with them. I wonder if they could show up for me. We don't know for sure. And I get that when you're in a really dark place, you're not just going to jump to the opposite. Our brain's not going to be like, yes, everyone understands me. Like our brain will reject a complete opposite belief, right? But if we can
Absolutely.
just crack the door with, I wonder if someone could hear me out. I wonder if I could find something in common with them. Because what I have found is if you talk to someone long enough, you're going to find something in common.
Oh,
And listen,
absolutely.
if it has to come down to like, we both have ears, we both have a
I love
mouth,
that.
like you can find something. And I bet if you talk long enough, you just will. I was actually on a show with a gal just recently on her podcast, and she's younger than me. She's probably in her early 20s and or mid 20s. And my brain might automatically assume we're not going to have a ton in common because we're both moms, great, but she's a younger mom and whatever, right? But then as I was sharing my story, she's like, well, my parents got divorced. And so I've experienced like that end of it. And then was talking about like birth defects or problems with her baby when she was younger. Like just me opening up about my story, she immediately connected with things that I didn't know. Because that's what I want you to think about is that you don't know what their experiences are. So, how do you actually know you have nothing in common with them?
Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah. It's so funny because, and I think I've said this more than once on the podcast so far, but I went to my husband after doing an episode and I'm like, I'm telling so many stories about myself. And he's like, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, pretty soon everybody's going to know everything about me. And he's like, isn't that the point?
Yeah. Right. They
And
can see
I
and
guess I
know.
put that into life, like, isn't that the
Yeah.
point? And I think I've gone through a lot of my life just kind of keeping my mouth shut. And it's interesting because I almost kind of like not physically, but like push my husband in front of me to be like, could you just be the social one? And like, I will just sit back here and say nothing. And that puts you in a very lonely space because nobody knows anything about you.
Right.
And so there's no reason to be connected to you. And so you're
Right. That
lonely.
totally. And I'm glad you said that too, because it is so true. We're like, oh, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to stay back here. I'm going to stay in the background. I don't like to be in the spotlight. You don't have to be in the full front stage spotlight in order to be seen.
Yeah.
Right.
I
And
love you that
here's,
you are somebody that like goes and is seen.
I love it. I'm like, give me a microphone, there's glitter in my veins. Like, I feel so good about it. But that's not the only way to be seen. And
Right.
I've actually had to really take a step back and figure out where I am in that space too. Because when I was younger, I always wanted attention because I didn't feel worthy, you know? And
Mhm.
so working through my worthiness beliefs, now I can be on stage and just love that I get to make an impact. I'm not doing it so I can get everyone's attention. There
Yeah.
is a shift, and maybe no one else can see that, but except for me, and that's okay because I know that internally, my reason and my motivation for being on stage is such a cleaner and happier energy, and it fills me up and makes me feel good, where before I was just grasping for someone to tell me I was worthy, and I felt depleted after. So
Well,
that's
and
another key
having,
way to know is, like,
yeah,
how you feel after.
having the experience of you emceeing an event, it is definitely not, and just so you know, I'm sure you've gotten this feedback before, but you definitely don't come away going, she's a lot. You come away, or she needs attention, or whatever. You come away with a feeling of, she wanted us to feel good. She wanted us to feel motivated. She wanted us, like, it's definitely an outward energy more than a look at me energy. And so just to have that feedback, you're doing a very good job in that area. Not that you need me to tell you that, but that worthiness is so interesting because in coaching, in being coached, because I very much believe in being coached and get coached all the time, but
Right, right.
in also coaching, it mostly comes down to I am not enough.
Yep,
Like almost 100% of the time, every problem comes down to I am not enough. And if we can just decide that we are, like we
yeah,
are enough, we are worthy, like I'm sure you've, and we're coached in kind of different philosophies a little bit, but uh, we're all 100% worthy. Like you don't get a
right.
choice in the matter. You just are.
Right. In fact, have you read the book Worthy by Jamie Learn? Is it
Lima.
I'm
Like,
butchering her name, maybe edit that out.
hey, Tish.
Jamie, I know it's something current. It's right
It's
here.
always weird when I reach back for books, but yeah, this
Okay,
one.
so edit back to this. Yes, the book Worthy. There it is. It is so good. I love her definition of worthiness and confidence because she talks about
Mm.
that worth is the foundation. It's the bedrock. It doesn't change. It's just there. And our confidence is the house we build on top of that foundation. Because our
Yeah.
confidence can be broken down at times. We build it back up, or we have confidence in one area but not another area. So it's kind of this continual house building, our
Well, and
confidence.
confidence is built. I wanted to mention that earlier when
Yeah.
we were talking about confidence. It's built. It's
Yeah, we
like I
create
am
that.
confident that I can pick up this cup. Well, the only reason I'm confident I can do that is because I've done it before.
Right.
Or you know what I mean? It's a completely different thing. And I think people think they want confidence sometimes, and what they really want is worthiness.
Right, which is
And
why I love that Jamie talks about that and makes that such a clear distinction. And I have read so many books in this world because I've, really tried to dive into like confidence and self-love and all the things. And it's one of the best books I've read to make that distinction and to be very
absolutely.
clear on like what it means to have worth. And it is so, so beautiful. And anyone who has not read it, go read it. It is amazing. Because yes, that
Absolutely.
self-worth is the non-negotiable part.
Yeah. And I love the part in the book, and it's Worthy by Jamie Kern Lima for anybody that wants to, everybody check it out. It's a must read. But she goes into a therapist, I believe, and she's like, "Am I crazy?" And like, because she wants to like do all these things. And I love having this conversation with you because look at you in like the NICU or whatever, however that went down. And you're like, I'm going to build this thing. I'm going to create, and you've built many things. And I'm sure sometimes you're going, am I crazy? And what the therapist told her was like, no, you're just first.
You're just the
And
first.
you're
Yeah.
just first. And so it's
Yeah.
like, I love that conversation because I think sometimes we can feel like we're a little much, or we're a little weird, or
Oh, yeah.
whatever. And it's
Mhm.
like, no, you're just first. And like, I live in
Right.
a very small town, like you're in Arizona, right?
Yeah.
So if you've gone to LA, you've come right through my town and you've stopped and gotten gas. And you're probably like, this is the only reason this town is here. Um, but I live in a very small town and nobody does what I do. And
Mm,
it's like, am I crazy? Like we're about to have like a class reunion, not for my class, but my husband's class. I'm a little hoarse right now. But we're about to have a class reunion and I know it's going to come up of
right.
what
What
I
do you do?
do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And people know what I do. And the last time we had kind of a get together, they're like, I watch your YouTube channel. And I was like, no, like people that know me watch what? No. And it's because nobody does what I do. And so I bring that all up just to say, like, if you guys are feeling a little weird, like, just embrace it.
Yep.
Like, embrace it. You are worthy. You are okay. And it's okay if you're doing things other people aren't doing. And that's kind of her story in that book. She, if you guys don't know, she created It Cosmetics, and that is what I'm wearing right now. It
I love it.
Cosmetics,
I love it. Good.
great foundation. Um, but yes, all back to circling all back around to the loneliness piece. What
Yeah.
about oversharing? A lot of people with ADHD are very concerned. There's being vulnerable, and then they're concerned that they've overshared and they've made someone uncomfortable. What's your stance on that?
That's a great question, and I love that, and that'll be perfect because I also wanna talk about, like, not being for everybody, so that'll be a perfect segue into that, I love it.
Exactly.
And yes, and listen, girl, I have overshared so many times, like, it's just a thing, right? So here's the truth, is the oversharing a problem? Not necessarily. I think the problem is what we're thinking about it. We made
Yeah.
them uncomfortable. I look like an idiot now. I can't believe I did that, right? It's all the self-talk after the overshare. Right?
Mm,
But what if you had a moment that maybe you shared more than you wanted to, right? And maybe that's the distinction is like, is it because I thought it was too much for them or was it too much for me? Like I just wasn't ready to share that part of myself yet. Right.
mm,
So I'm in a conversation, me and you were hanging out, and I'm like, blah, 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 vomit all these things. I'm like, oh, I wasn't quite ready to share those things yet. Maybe you could just say, oh my goodness, I shared more than I intended to and I don't think you should have to apologize for that.
yeah.
Like, I'm over apologizing for being myself, right? And or for making mistakes or whatever. Like, just acknowledging and maybe if you think it's too much for them, maybe acknowledging the impact it might have been for them. Like, "Hey, I just wanted to check in if the things I was sharing was heavy for you." From a place of caring about them, not because you're trying to excuse away who you are. Does that make sense? Like,
I
it's not
love
a,
that because it
"Oh, I
clears the
hope that
air.
could hear all these things." It's like, I care enough about you to check in with your emotional state. Not that I'm in charge of it, but I know that I have an impact on people around me.
Mm,
So just want to check in because I love you. But again, that's coming from a place of I feel worthy and I feel enough. I'm just checking in on my friend because I care about them. Or if I share too much and it's too much for me, I'm checking in with me because I love me. And I'm like,
mm,
"Oh, Annie, is that more than you wanted to share?" And maybe it's a conversation or maybe it's just a reality check for you of like,
yeah.
"Oh, you know what? That might have been too much. Now I know. Next time, maybe I don't need to share that much. Maybe I can just journal about that or talk about it in a coaching session or whatever."
And
Right?
what's done
So,
is
yeah.
done.
Yeah,
There's
can't
also
change it.
that piece.
Yeah,
Like,
it be done, girl. The words have been vomited out. They're out there. So, can't do it.
but there was
Yeah.
another place you wanted to go with that. The
Oh, yeah,
overshare.
just about just the feeling like we're the not enough piece. What if you're just not for everyone?
Mm,
And can that just be okay? I bought myself a shirt that said, "I'm not for everyone." Because while people like you are delightful who, like, share the nicest things with me, but here's the truth, and I do appreciate your feedback of, like, that it's landing the way that I want it to land, right?
mm,
And I will take that as a gift and, like, tuck it in my little heart pocket because that means a lot to me that it's resonating the way I want it to resonate, but your opinion of me is not changing my opinion of me,
mhm.
even if it's good. Even if you're like, "Girl, you're so wonderful. I love that you MC these things." That's not changing my opinion of me because I already have one. And my
Mm.
opinion of me is that I'm pretty great and I have great talents. And there's a lot of things I really suck at, but I don't care anymore. Like
And
I just don't
I
have,
just
I'm
want to
not good at
pause
them.
there. Like, you guys realize, those watching this or watching on YouTube or listening, you can just decide. you're great. You just get
Yeah.
to. You don't need
Mhm.
anyone's permission. You can
Nope.
just decide you are.
Yep, 100%. Because people saying those things about me still speaks to who they are, even if it's nice things. You saying nice things to me right now speaks to you having a level of self worth of your own that you can speak kind words about someone else and know that it doesn't take away anything from you
Mm,
to acknowledge someone else's greatness. So that speaks to your mental health and your level of security within you that you can give me lovely feedback.
mm,
So do you know what that
yeah.
tells me? Tells me you're a great person. And I will take that feedback and put it in my heart pocket because that's where I keep all my kind words. Because those are things I can pull out in a moment of like weakness, of like, ooh, am I doing good things? Am I making an impact? Well, you know what? I have all this evidence to show me that the belief I already chose is true.
Yeah.
Right? But you're not deciding that for me. I'm not deciding I'm great because, you told me I'm great. I already decided that. You're kind of some evidence to support the belief I already have. It's magnetizing to me because I already believe it. But if
Yeah.
someone thinks, oh, she is too much and she's obnoxious and whatever, that also does not define my worth.
And
I
you know
am
what?
great, even if they don't like me.
It's back, it's full circle because that says something about their uncomfortableness with them.
Correct.
If they're deciding you're too much, it's because it's about them. It has nothing to do with you. It's
No.
about them going, well, if I did that, I would be too much. Therefore, I'm going to decide this person's too much because
Right. And maybe
either,
they have some resentment around not being able to live their life full out. Right.
mhm.
Because I do have a very loud, crazy energy. I do live my life full out. I am very loud and proud about like my who I am and what I'm doing in my life. And for those who are sad that they're not doing that, they might look at me and think, I wish I could do that. But then it comes out as a judgment instead.
Yeah.
Right.
That's so interesting. I was just thinking about that this weekend. Oh gosh, what was it? I don't know if it was something I saw, but it's like the people that wish they were doing what you were doing are the ones that are going to judge you. It was something along those lines. I'm not
Hmm.
sure if I'm saying it word for word, but it to some degree, maybe they don't want to
Right.
do the same thing you're doing, but maybe they want just a persona of who you are. But
Right.
the people that are going to be attracted to you or love you are the ones that are like, I could do that. That's
Right.
I resonate with that. That's a piece of who I am.
Right, and I'll have people tell me like, "Oh, I wish I could dance like you." I hear that all the time. I'm not a great dancer. I just have 0 cares, and I just go full out because I don't care if you think I'm weird when I'm dancing. I just there's not one part of me that cares. But when I hear people say, "I wish I could dance like you." Do you know what I tell them? No, you don't. You don't need my dance moves. You want the freedom to not care.
Care, not care. That is the thing that made me the most uncomfortable at the conferences, I will say, is because I do have cares,
And that's normal and that's okay.
but
It's
I didn't make
okay.
it mean anything about you. It was about me, you
Right,
know?
but that's what people actually want when they see me doing these things, whether it's online or at a conference or wherever I'm at, or even just like hanging out with my buddies. And I was just at Megan Trainor last night and I was dancing so hard I like fell down the hill like a little bit and like slipped and fell.
You're like a little bit.
I mean, I did it like I just don't want you to imagine me like rolling, rolling, rolling down a hill. Like I just like slipped and fell and then almost ran into someone, but didn't, thankfully. But I mean, I just go nuts. Like people are like, what is wrong with her? And that's okay. But my point is that you're not necessarily wanting my dance moves. You just want to feel the permission that I feel to just be full out. It doesn't have to be in dancing. You just want in your life to feel free to do whatever it is makes you feel really happy. So I'm giving you a permission slip right now, writing it out. Here it is. Here's your permission slip that whatever calls to your spirit, it does not have to be dancing. I do think that dancing, even if it's not in front of people, dancing is just a way to feel lots of joy. I genuinely believe that.
Yeah.
But if that's not your thing, but what is it in your life that you're like scared to do, but you know deep down that if you did it, you would feel like you're living your life full out? That's what I'm trying to give you permission to do.
Yeah. And to just circle back around to like the topic, like that might just be talking to people. Guys, like
Yes.
when you want to hold back, like going ahead and having the conversation so that you're not feeling lonely. Like it might be having the game night. It might be having people over. Like let's
Right.
start dealing with people in real life a
Yeah,
little
let's
bit.
just do that. Yes. And I love that we're circling back because with this like not enough or these beliefs, this is part of what keeps people as well from from reaching out or from sharing because there's a fear there around if I share too much like we already talked about, but sharing too much or that they're not going to like me. Like if I put myself out there and they don't like me, we're so afraid of rejection.
Yeah.
And I get it. Our brains are wired to to be afraid of that or whatever. And she talks about this in the book Worthy as well.
I
But
was hoping you were going to say that.
yes,
That
she
was
has a
that
whole
point.
section on rejection, right? That rejection one is just part of life. But if someone rejects me, they're just not for me.
Yeah.
And that is okay. I can tell you right now, people who do not like me, right? Like my joke often on stage is, well, you guys really like me. I've got two ex-husbands who disagree with you, right? Like there are definitely people who don't like me.
Uh,
To be fair, my second ex-husband and I, we have a much better relationship. It's been really beautiful actually for us to have a more healed space for our kids.
mm.
So that joke doesn't fully apply anymore. But point is, he decided I was not someone he wanted to be married to, right? Like I'm definitely not everyone's favorite. And if I can decide that that's about them and not about me, it's a much more healing space. But what I'm here to tell you is that if you take a step and say, okay, I'm going to reach out to this person. I really like them. I kind of dig their vibe. I think we'd have fun together. And you reach out and they're saying essentially no to you, whether it's they're too busy, they've got all these excuses, they're not responding to you.
A look on
Instead of,
their face,
right, they
anything.
kind of, yeah, hesitate or whatever it is. If I can I just get one, I want to give you a big hug, like, come here, just, I'm going to give you a hug and tell you, mama, like, that means nothing about you.
Right.
They just might not have space for you right now, but there are 5 bajillion humans on this earth. There has got to be one or two who would be dying to hang out with you.
There are websites. I was just listening.
Yes.
Okay, one of my favorite podcasts, and this is not an endorsement, but it's called My First Million. And they were talking just recently on their website about all these websites for lonely people,
Yep.
for the lonely elderly, for lonely, and some of them were kind of like risque a little bit, but um they were
We're
supposed to
not
be
going
like
that route.
friend websites, but like the guy like looked it up as they were having the conversation and he's like, I don't think this is for friends. Um,
Yep. Okay. Not that kind of lonely. Got it. Got it.
but there's an industry
Right.
because and they were talking about in Japan, there are names, different names for certain degrees of loneliness. And they were talking about this certain percentage of men that do not leave their homes
Mm,
that that can you imagine that? Like they just do not leave their homes. They order in, they don't speak to people. Like we could get to that degree if we don't do something about this. And so I think if anything, reach out to somebody like in a real way
yep.
today, tomorrow, whatever it is. Like reach out to somebody in a real way for you. And don't
Right.
worry about being too much or oversharing or and circling back around to like you're not for everybody. That's okay. One of my favorite movies is Pride and Prejudice and not like the old version. The oh gosh, the music is from like Ang Lee or something like that. Keira Knightley's in it.
Okay.
That one. And there is this part where she like goes up to somebody. I can't even remember. I've seen the movie 100 times, but I can't remember at the moment. But she goes up to somebody and she says something or asks them to dance or something, and they reject her. I think it was the main character. What's his name? And I should know these things.
I think Mr. Darcy, is that your
Mr. Darcy.
name?
There you go.
Okay, there it
She
is.
goes up
Boom.
and she says something to him, and he kind of completely like, he's kind of a
He
jerk.
brushes her off.
Yeah. And she shrugs her shoulders and she walks away. And I just like, I embody that so much all the time where like I go and like say something and it just maybe doesn't land. And I'm just like, okay.
Yep. Okay. And you let, But that's the thing, when you are rooted in who you are, like your roots are deep of your worth and that foundation is strong, then those other things can't hurt as much because it's
Yeah.
not actually their rejection that's hurting you. And I think that's the distinction that's very powerful in this loneliness space is their rejection is not actually what's hurting. It's what you make of that rejection that hurts.
Yes. It's your
'Cause
thoughts
if I'm
about
like,
it.
"Oh, see, there's proof that nobody likes me and that no one's gonna ever like me and that I'm the worst person," and spiral, 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 spiral,
Yeah.
spiral, right? But if they have a rejection and we think, "Huh, well, I'm not for everyone," then that rejection doesn't have the same sting because of the way you're looking at it. And I'm not gonna sit here and tell you this is an easy process.
Right.
Okay, I have spent years working on this. I didn't wake up one day and be like, Girl, I love you." Like, that was not the case for me. I attempted suicide at age 20. I'm
Oh
now
my
almost
goodness.
42, and it's been a very long journey to learn to like myself. And those thoughts still come back. There are times that I'm still like, yeah, everyone would be better off if I wasn't here. Those thoughts
Mm.
will still come, but I've gotten better and better and better at karate chopping them. Like, well, that's a lie because I have all this stuff to prove that that is not true. And if you've ever had those thoughts, one, I see you and I hear you. And secondly, I promise you it's a lie. There is nothing you've done in your life that's so bad that we're better off with you not here. We are
Yeah.
absolutely better off with you here. And so if there are people that don't like you or that reject you, please know that that means nothing about you. And another piece of advice I would give to that I've often had with clients is they'll say they see these groups of people and they are feeling left out of this group and they want
Mm.
to be in this group so badly. And I've had those feelings before too. And I have this awakening around groups because people will say, "Oh, they're so clicky. Oh, they're so clicky."
That gets said so much. Yes.
All the time. And here's the thing, and I used to say it too, but I stopped. And here's why. Because think about it. We are all humans with limited resources, right? Our time, our energy, our money, all these things. There is a certain number of hours in a day. How we execute those hours makes a difference, right? But there's only so many hours in a day and only so many humans we can have in our close inner circle. Especially as moms, you don't have the bandwidth to have 95 close personal best friends.
Mhm.
It just doesn't work, right? And so when you see a group of people that have found their kind of common ground and found their interests and found this like cohesion, and listen, there might be people that are being rude and clicky. I'm not saying that your experience isn't valid. What I'm saying is that maybe you could transform that into, do I really want to be part of their group or do I just want a group?
Yeah.
Right? Because I've had several people tell me like, "Oh, I see these groups of friends and I wanna be part of that and I feel left out because I'm trying to get in, I can't get in." Only so many people can sit at the dinner table. You know, it's not necessarily always this place of exclusion. Sometimes it's just a place of how can we have I wanna take the whole world in my arms. I do. I wanna give everybody a giant hug and let them be in my space, but I don't have the bandwidth. Nobody does. But I
Yeah.
promise you there is 49,000 people in your city or your area or whatever that are feeling the same way. So you guys create your own group. And like you said, you're not crazy, you're just the first. So you might be the first one in your space to say, I don't know any of you, but come be my friend or whatever. And I know that takes something. I'm not denying that that's hard, especially like if you're an introvert or whatever. But listen, maybe just one person is enough for you. And it absolutely can be because we don't need 95,000 friends to feel worthy. I used to think that. I used to try to collect every friend on the planet because I wanted to just feel good about myself. And I just like people, and so I wanted everyone in my corner, like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you can be my friend too." But then I realized I can't. I can't have everybody be my close friend.
I mean, if we're being honest, it's not fair to them either
No, because I
because
can't give them much of my time. I'm like, "Well, you can have 1 hour a month because that's all I got for you," right? Like, and there are other people that I love dearly, and we just have tiny touch points here and there or on Facebook, or I come on their show, right? Like, whatever. They're part of my community, and I love them, but there's only so much space for, like, people I'm talking to on a regular basis, regularly hanging out. So if you're seeing those groups and thinking, "Oh, I feel left out," can you turn that around to say, I just want the concept. I don't need to be in their group. I just want a group.
Yeah.
So, what can I do to create my own space of a couple of ladies that I feel connected to, that are like minded? And you don't have to have the exact same interests. Like, I have friends in my church community that are 85 years old.
I
Right?
love
She's in
that.
a far different phase than I am. She's a great grandma, and I'm a mother with no grandkids. Like, we're not in the same space, but we can find other things to connect on. And so it's just creating space for people that fill you up, that are emotionally safe, that are people that are cheering you on, and getting
Mhm.
clear on that is important too. And I actually have a freebie that we can have a link to for your listeners, but it's 3 steps to overcoming loneliness. And it's these journal prompts to kind of guide you through how to create a community that works for you. And you don't
Yeah.
have to already have one. You can be like, I have no friends. Okay. I promise you, if you're following these steps to a T, you will start attracting the right people. Because if you're just putting out your weirdo bat signal, people are going to come, you know?
I as I have Batman here
As
behind
she
me.
has the Avengers behind her, which makes me very happy. I love Avengers so much. Well, I guess technically Batman's not Avengers.
Yeah,
So
I
I
get
love
confused.
superheroes, we'll say that.
I love
But
superheroes
yes,
too. Yes,
when
yes.
you throw up your bat signal of like, this is my flavor of crazy, who wants in? You know? And you're
Yeah.
not literally saying that, right? But like for example, I go to High Fitness. It's a basically hit training choreographed to music. If you've never been, it's so much fun.
Oh, love that.
It's amazing, and I go at least twice a week, if not more, and I have certain classes I go to because they're my community now. I went because I love the teacher, and then I just started being my brand of weird, and just, I crump it out when I forget a move or whatever, or I am on the floor rolling around like an idiot, and it's fine. But the people that are like, "Heck yes," they will just come up to me after class. They're like, "I know I don't know you, but you're just so fun, and I want to know you." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." Because I didn't like ask for them to do that. I just was myself. Granted,
Mm.
you do not have to be a weirdo and dance on the floor to attract your people,
But we
right?
all have our own weirdo bat signal.
Everyone has your
Yes.
own bat signal. And that might be you're someone who is kind and patient and serves quietly, and you show up with a treat, or you just ask someone how they're doing. Like, your version of like, what are your offerings for the world? How are you showing up? Everyone has their own strengths. And when you're clear on who you are, what your strengths are, and what you have to offer to the world, you're going to attract the right people. I
Yeah.
promise you will.
Well, and one thing, and I want to be conscious of your time because we are over just a little bit. But one thing I kind of want to bring this all back to, and maybe this is the only child in me. Like I have a stepbrother and sister that are lovely, but I grew up as an only child for
Okay.
quite some time. There was times that I was very happy alone and not
Yes.
lonely. Like you can also be, but just you have to be happy in that space. Like you can't if you're alone and unhappy, there's a difference between being alone and happy with yourself. But
Yep.
that's just to say, don't do that all the time. Just be okay with that when that is the case.
Hmm.
And also, let's follow all these steps. Let's
Right.
yeah,
Let's reach out, let's connect. And there is time and space and seasons for stillness and quietness, and also just being on your own. And as a major extrovert, I used to always just run to other people. And as I've learned to heal and to be okay with myself, I will crave my own quiet time now. I crave time alone because it will re-energize me in a certain way. Being around people also energizes me, right? But I have a balance now. I know when I've had enough people time. And now it's time for me to be alone, to be in my own thoughts, to work through things, to spend time with God, to be with just Annie. And I think that that's an important distinction to make. Yes, have the connection and have that space, and do the work to feel completely, not completely, but have a sense of contentment and peace by yourself.
yeah.
And again, that comes to your headspace, because when I'm all alone, and that happens often for me, my kids are at their dad's half the time. So half the nights of my month, I'm sleeping by myself because my kids will love to come get in my bed when they're here. But
Mhm.
there's no one in the house. I am completely alone. One piece of that is that for me, I subscribe to God. Like, that's a channel I subscribe to. And I feel like a heavenly presence always with me. So I always feel that I'm never alone because I have this, greater divine purpose that's with me. But in addition to that, it's what I'm thinking when I'm by myself. Am I
Yeah.
thinking, oh man, I'm all alone. I'm all alone. No one's with me. And there's something wrong with that? That's where some of
Mhm.
that pain comes in, right?
I
Or
call
I'm
that in
thinking, oh,
coaching making it a problem. Like,
yes,
don't
right,
make
I'm
it a
making it a
problem.
problem. And is it actually a problem? Not necessarily, right? Can this be time and space for me to pursue interests that I love? I just did a reel recently on my Instagram to show like me recharging, laying down, going for a walk, reading a book. Because often people will see me dancing on a boat or doing crazy things, and they're like, "You have such a crazy life." And I'm like, "That is like, I don't know, 20%. That's one chunk of my life, going to concerts and being the MC and all the stuff. That is one chunk of my life. But there are plenty of hours where I am all alone doing things that are quiet by myself, and I'm okay with that. But it's not always this glamorous lifestyle that I'm partying all the time and, you know, being on, crazy things all the time. But I think it's the mindset. If I'm alone by myself, am I thinking, oh, I'm all alone because nobody likes me and no one wants to spend time with me?
Mhm.
Because we are also, even I have times where I reach out and ask people to hang out and they can't. And so then I'm alone for the night because nobody had the space that night. And that's okay. So it's again that mindset. Am I thinking, oh wow, no one likes me, no one wants to hang out with me? Or am I thinking, man, I love my friends and it's okay they're busy tonight. And
Yeah.
I'm still okay.
Mhm.
So yes, but
Absolutely.
spending that time alone is also just part of the journey and it's okay. But it's finding the balance for you because I might need less alone time than someone else.
Yeah.
But finding the ratio that works for you, but don't spend so much time alone that, like you said, you're not spending so much time alone that, like, you're just getting into these negative headspaces, like, make sure you're reaching out and having that connection, but whatever is the most fueling for your soul.
And this might be helpful, and I'm sure I've talked about it, and maybe I haven't. Maybe I've only talked about it with clients, but as a person with ADHD, I have an important people contact list because
I
out
love
of
that.
sight, out of mind,
Mhm.
even with the people that you love can be a thing, and don't make that a shameful thing. It's just the way maybe your brain is wired, and maybe not all ADHDers, but me, like my adult son, I could go, and it sounds terrible like to say, but I could go like 2 weeks without going, gosh, I haven't even texted. And he's doing his life, so he's not worried
Right.
about it.
Yeah.
And so, like, an important people list could be a good tool for people as well. Like, have that
Yep.
somewhere you can see it, where if nothing else, you are shooting them a text and just being like, thinking about you, love you,
Right.
hope you're
Right.
okay.
I love you bringing up tools because that's something for me too. Like I have calendar reminders, I've got alarms, I've got all kinds of things. Because you're right, out of sight, out of mind. It's not because I don't care. I just will get wrapped up in thinking about heaven even knows what, but I'll in this rabbit hole of my own brain and then be like, oh shoot, I forgot it's someone's birthday or whatever. Like you said, there's no shame in having those tools available. My friends make fun of me because I have so many alarms that go off every day just for parenting. Feed your children, put them in a shower, make sure they get their meds. Like I've been giving my son meds for years now. You'd like
Yeah.
to think that every night I'm like, time to give meds. Listen, sis, it's not the case. I will for sure forget if the alarm does not go off. So I still have those things put in place to support my brain
Okay.
because I love myself.
I love that you bring this up because I think this has also only come up with clients where when I'm working with them on their time management, I'm like, no, put everything on the calendar. And they're like,
Everything.
what do you mean? And I'm like, my calendar says get dressed, put on makeup.
Yep.
It has
Whatever you need.
everything. And once I did that, once I created these like ridiculous routines, and people think I shouldn't have to do that. Well, we're not saying that you're brain dead or you're completely forgetful or whatever. Your brain is just wired differently. And what's probably really happening is you are, like you said, going down the rabbit hole of something fantastic.
Yep.
And you just aren't focused on the boring stuff like other people. So you have to have these tools in order to get the boring things done.
Yeah, and it's okay. And assess what you need because maybe one person needs like get dressed, all the things, and I need give meds, feed your children, and maybe that's not a problem for you. You never forget dinner or whatever.
Mhm.
Find the things, the weak spots for you, and just honor yourself. Because that's one thing we talk a lot too in my camp with my girls is we all have strengths and we all have things we need support in. I don't even love referring it to as like a weakness. I like saying, what do I need support in? And I always tell them, I'm bad at math, so I use a calculator to support me. I'm bad at directions. I use a GPS to support me, right? I have these calendars and alarms to support some of the things I forget. Some things, for whatever reason, I don't forget. There's some random appointment that are like tattooed on my brain. And even if it wasn't on the calendar, I would remember. But then other like daily tasks, I'm like, shoot, didn't do that again. Whoopsie. Like taking vitamins for some reason, for the love, I cannot remember every day. You want me to do that every day? That's too much. Anyway, so it's just
Yeah.
acknowledging where you're at, giving yourself those reminders. And I'm going to put a plug in for scheduling your fun.
Oh,
If that's
yes.
hard for you, like if you're like, "Oh yeah, I wanna have
Mhm.
fun, but I'm too busy." Listen, mom, we're all busy, okay? We're
Mhm.
all busy, so that's not an excuse anymore. I'm taking that excuse away from you. You're gonna schedule in your fun and make sure, and if that's a puzzle, if that's, going to Target for 25 minutes, not anyone around you, whatever it is, but put that on your calendar too, because that can also get lost in the wayside. Because I
Yeah.
think that play and fun is vital for overcoming loneliness. Because even if you're by yourself, if you're doing something fun that you enjoy, watch, you're not feeling lonely because you're doing the thing you love to do.
Exactly.
So
When I
scheduling
get
your fun.
when I get my clients like dialed in with their time management, that's what I say. So now how are we going to add in the fun?
Yep,
And
perfect.
that has to be scheduled in some sort of way. Whatever everybody's unique. So whatever sort of system that is for them, it is like, no, create the time for fun. And what does that mean for you? And how are you going to refill your cup now that because everybody's so worried about being productive. And
I
it's
know.
like, that's
We're
all
like addicted to it. I get it. It's
well and
fine.
good, but yeah. All
Yep,
right.
schedule it.
So I don't feel like we got a good enough plug for your system here. To give us a link or something.
Okay, so if you go to anniejoy.com, there right there on that homepage is the signing up for 3 steps to overcoming loneliness. And it's these journal prompts to get you clear on where your circle is right now, what you want from that circle, and how you can create it. So there's multiple questions in kind of each category to get you to deeper dive on what you're looking for. Because maybe you'll get clear on here's the strengths I'm looking for from someone. What does support look like to me? Because that might look different for me than for you, right? So
Yeah.
when you get really clear on those things, you get very intentional about what you're looking for. It will guide you in much better action steps to create the community of your dreams. They
Yeah.
exist, I promise. And you might end up with more than one. I now have multiple communities, which is amazing. But I also have boundaries around my communities, right? Like my high fitness community, I'm not always hanging out with them outside of high fitness, right? Like sometimes that overlaps and that's wonderful, but oftentimes it's just that's kind of the space for that. And that is okay. But you might end up with different communities with different spaces in your life. And I'm telling you, it will open up a whole new world because if I can figure it out, I promise you can too. So over
Awesome.
on anniejoy.com is where you can find that freebie and get on my email newsletter. And my Instagram is anniejoy.speaks. And I share lots of content on there as well. Just tips and tricks, ways to just be silly, have fun, how to communicate better, how to support your mental health, all the things that will help you feel less lonely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Annie. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we finally got together. I kept bugging her just a little bit.
It's totally fine. Because guess what? It was something that got off the calendar and then whoop, out the brain. So this is why we have to have friends who lovingly support us in, oh, by the way, ding, 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 I need your attention, right? Because, and I know because you understand ADHD, I know that it's like, hey, girl, I'm excited to talk to you. Not like, how dare you not get back on my calendar, right? It's like, nope, you know what? It was sort of on there and then it fell off and then it was out of my brain. But here we are. And I'm so grateful for you. I just think what you're doing is amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on.